Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming to Living in the HOA again today. And today we want to continue in management of the communities. But before we get into management of the community and the trees and the landscaping in the community, which we've been talking about in previous videos, I felt it was important to take a step back and look at how these communities come into being, how they happen. How is your community built before you ever get there? And so that's important to understand because a lot of people think it's just a developer going out and putting stakes in the ground and then selling a property. That's not what it is. It's much more complicated than that. And there are many steps involved, many agencies involved on the local level, the state level, that review everything that you do to build a community. So I wanted to talk about that today because I feel like it's important to understand what goes into building the community before we talk about the HOA that governs that community. It's good to know what is under the jurisdiction of an HOA and who are the agencies involved. We'll be talking about that, as well as all of the infrastructure, where the infrastructure comes from, how it is designed, how it is planned, how it is installed. Because in the future, if you are involved in your HOA, and I hope you will be, that's important information to understand is how your community was designed and how it was built and how it was reviewed. Who looked at that? Who had a say-so in approving it? So that's what I want to start talking about a little bit today. So the first thing is, most of the things I will be talking about will be Arizona based. Because of course that's where I am, and so communities in Arizona fall under certain regulations. They fall under the jurisdiction of certain agencies, and so that's good for you to know as a background as well. So these same things may apply in your state. Depends on on the statutes that have been developed by your state and local agencies. And so I assume that most of the process in other states is fairly similar, though no, it's not identical, obviously. But here in Arizona, this is what we will be focusing on mainly. So the first thing that happens is a builder or a company that has been formed by a builder to develop that property records and its name and its structure with the Corporation Commission as a nonprofit entity. Eventually, at the very beginning, it's obviously it's a profit entity, but the name of it and how it's structured and where it operates is recorded in the documents of the Arizona Corporation Commission. So that's the very beginning of it. And so this company will find a property that they are interested in. They will purchase that property, and they can be quite extensive. They can be very large properties, it's large land holdings. So eventually, these HOAs, as you will discover, are responsible for managing large tracts of land. They're large land managers, and that's important because there's a lot that goes into land management, even in a desert like we have here, but also in other states. They may have different. Well, obviously, you do have different environments and different kinds of forests and different kinds of trees and infrastructure in these communities. But in Arizona, even with the desert, the land holdings that have to be managed are very large in many instances. There are communities that have thousands of homes in them, plus the common areas. So they can be quite extensive. And these things first have to be looked at and be subject to a request to purchase by the builder, the entity, the company that I mentioned. And so first that company buys the property. And then they start developing plans for that. And they're very preliminary plans at the beginning, but it basically this just a little beyond the napkin drawing, I guess, on some of them. But they lay out how this community is going to look. How many properties do they want to have for sale in that community? And of course, that depends upon the size of the individual lots, how many can be fit within that community, within the boundaries of it. And that is approved and reviewed by the Department of Real Estate in Arizona. So all of that is sketched out in a preliminary plan by that builder. They may have a landscape architect involved in doing that. Usually they do. And environmental people, as well as construction engineers and designers, are all involved in putting together this preliminary plan for the community that they want to build. And so it has everything in it, including the exits from the community onto public streets, how where the streets inside the community are laid out, where the common areas are, how big the common areas are. If you have a clubhouse or amenities in that community, they are designed preliminarily in that layout that is given to the local agencies when the builder wants to start the formal process of building this community and putting together this community. So that preliminary plan is presented to the local agencies, and those can be local planning and development groups or agencies in your municipality. It can be environmental people. It can be recreation, parks and recreation representatives, fire departments, water agency people that would review if water that's needed and water that's available. Does that match up? So there's a big meeting that occurs at the very beginning to review what this builder wants to do. And so after that, once everything is reviewed by these different groups and their representatives, then the process actually starts of designing a final design for this community. And that, of course, is done by engineers, surveyors, and plan review people from the local agencies. So they review those, and they make sure that everything falls within the guidelines of the local community. The kinds of plants that are allowed, if there are water restricted kind of plants, if there's xeric landscaping, the kinds of trees that are proposed to be put into the community, and how the drainage looks in that community, how it will go, how many retention basins you have to have, and what size retention basins. Because retaining the water that flows, the stormwater that would flow at a rain event is very important, because the state of Arizona, of course, and appropriately want to maintain the water and to keep it as much as possible where it falls and not let it drain off and just run down to the local streams and go away. They want to keep it and recharge it or put it back into the ground and into the groundwater to maintain the groundwater levels, because Everybody needs water in Arizona. Every community needs water. Every municipality needs water. And so they want to keep it as much as possible where it falls. So these plans are developed. They are uh, carefully designed and reviewed internally by the builder and their engineers and their architects to make that plan a little more detailed, a little more finalized, because when they go into the next phases of review by state agencies, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, the Department of Real Estate, the Department of Environmental Quality, all of these agencies are involved in this, as well as the local agencies, of course, like I was describing. So there are many levels and many people that are involved in doing this, lots of regulations. So it's not like that the builder just gets an idea to go out and start selling a lot and he puts stakes in the ground. That's not the way it is. Maybe a long time ago it used to be that way, but it's not that way anymore. These urban areas and the subdivisions are carefully designed, they are carefully planned, because when you decide to purchase one of these lots, this can be your life savings that go into these lots. And so your family's future, financial future, depends upon that. And so it is carefully done. It's covered by laws, many different laws. So these plans are reviewed by these different agencies. You have to have a 100-year water assurance guarantee or certificate for these developments, because nobody wants to run out of water 50 or 75 or 80 years into the future. Nobody wants to run out of water anytime. It's disastrous to do that. So there's a 100-year water supply guarantee that is required by state law. And the Department of Transportation looks at the traffic flow in and out of that community, how many people would be expected to be moving on the roads, how wide are the roads, and the exits going out onto the public streets, and is it safe? What is the traffic volume that is expected? And all that is carefully looked at. So once all of that is planned, all that is reviewed by the representatives of the various agencies in coordination with the builders, architects, the builders, designers, then you have a final plan and you have a map that shows that subdivision. And this is called the final plat. The plat just is like a bird's eye view of that community, and the design of it, like a drawing of it, shows the dimensions of every lot, the numbers of every lot, where they are in relation to the common areas and the streets, where the streets are. All of these things are included on the final plat, and that is what is used forever in dealing with the management of that property. When you purchase a home, you receive a detailed plat or a lot layout for your property, showing the length of it, the width of it, how it stands in relation to other properties and the streets, sidewalks. And so that is done for you when you purchase a property. But before you get there, there's a lot of design and installation of infrastructure that has to be done. And there's various kinds of infrastructure. The brown infrastructure is basically the soil. What's the soil like? And that must be sampled and the quality of the soil determined. And it has to be dealt with carefully, because without the soil, the landscaping simply can't grow there. It won't last. It's not sustainable. So we have to understand what is there in terms of the brown infrastructure for that community. And most people never think about the brown infrastructure. That's everything that's underneath that entire community, from one border to the other, from the street on the east, the street on the west, north and south. So the brown infrastructure is very important. Samples have to be taken of that. There has to be compaction studies that are done. Of course, compaction is very important. It's a very important issue, and can be an important problem eventually. And we'll talk about that when we talk more about tree installation and tree management. But the brown infrastructure is an important part of the community. Blue infrastructure, if you have any water channels on that in that community, if you have any ponds and lakes, fountains, those kinds of things, that's considered blue infrastructure. And then you also have gray infrastructure, which is everything that's concrete and asphalt and masonry, everything that is built and installed that way. That is the gray infrastructure. And as you'll see over time, as we talk about this, we'll refer to the gray infrastructure quite a bit, and to distinguish it from other kinds of infrastructure. Then is also green infrastructure. Now, green infrastructure, you have to define what you're talking about, because some people consider green infrastructure to be environmental saving kinds of infrastructure. It can be rain capture and saving water. A lot of people think that green infrastructure is just that kind of thing. It is not. Green infrastructure means living. And all the green infrastructure in a community is primarily living infrastructures, living plants, living trees, living ground cover. It can be grass and turf. It can be shrubs. So that is really what I refer to, and will continue to refer to, as green infrastructure. It is living things, and it's very delicate. We have to be careful with the green infrastructure, and how it is sustained and how we manage it. So the green infrastructure is subject to planning, just like the gray infrastructure is subject to planning. Architects are involved, and landscape architects are involved in the green infrastructure plans. And so all of these things have plans, and the green infrastructure is planned just as meticulously as gray infrastructure. That is part of the planning of these communities, and they have to be reviewed, and they have to be carefully looked at by various people in those agencies. And then beyond that, you also have plans for, as I said, transportation, sidewalks, streets, and also the water flow, stormwater flows. And that would determine how your streets are graded, how the lots are graded, because you don't want water to back up anywhere except in one place, and that is in retention basins. That's where you want water retained. That's where you want it to be pooled, and so that it can go back down into the ground. But you don't want water pooled on a lot anywhere, your private lots. You don't want it pooled on the streets, because it can be dangerous, and it can cause damage. And pooled water on streets or sidewalks can do damage to the structures themselves, and eventually require replacing those structures. Nobody wants to do that. There's no need for that if they're properly planned. So the stormwater is called stormwater flows, and those go into the retention basins. We will be looking at a retention basin in the future, about how those operate, how they are managed, and what they do. And so retention basins are critical in Arizona, where we have so little rain and so little water. Retention basins are a very important part of the land management that the HOA is responsible for. And finally, the agencies approve it and say you can start building, and the builder will then start building model homes. They will build their sales offices, and they will build spec homes that are available to sell at the beginning, because they want to sort of jumpstart the sales of that community. And so they build these spec homes that demonstrate, that illustrate what a home would look like and the idea that they have for that community, how they want it to look. And so this is how they start selling the homes. Um, and so eventually, the homes get sold. They begin selling more and more of them, until a certain point when they sell a certain percentage of them. It can be anywhere from 75 to 80, 90% of the homes. And then that will become a standalone community that is managed by the people of that community themselves, that run the HOA, the Homeowners Association. But until that time, that homeowners association, even though it has been formed and designed, and its documents is the declaration of the community, the declaration of how it is to be managed and run, the bylaws, the CCNRs, the codes and conditions and restrictions, all of those things, as well as your plans, are under the management, under the control of the declarant. The declarant is the builder that is building out that community, and so they manage that HOA up until the point that enough of those homes are sold. Then they will offer to turn over that HOA to the community and the residents of that community to manage it themselves. And so that's a very important point. Transition period. There are things that need to be done and often are not done correctly, such as reviews and inspections of the landscaping itself. The community, the people that are initially involved on that board, should put together a team to go out and to review those and to look at how the landscaping was installed, the condition of the landscaping, what kinds of trees were installed, where were they installed, were they installed properly, and these should have someone that's part of that team that has experience and knowledge on the proper installation process, and how that is done. Now, there is an entity called the Maricopa Association of Governments, the MAG, called MAG, and they have design standards and drawings of how things are supposed to be done. For instance, how trees are to be planted, how deeply they're to be installed in the soil, what the hole looks like, how it's shaped. Understand the best things, the best design for installation of a tree. What's the appropriate depth? What species of trees are appropriate for this environment, and all of that. So these people should be involved, and we'll talk a little bit more about what needs to be looked at in that kind of a transition investigation from the builder to the community, because you don't want something that's done improperly and then the community be responsible for having to fix problems or to change it in the future. It's very expensive to do that, and you don't want to have to do that. So anyway, this is how a subdivision comes about in Arizona, and just a cursory view, a high level view of what the process is. And so my point in doing this was to help you understand what goes into building a community that is ultimately the responsibility of the HOA. to manage. And it's an important thing. It's very critical. It's financially important for the people who buy homes there. It's important for the entire community that it be properly managed, that it be understood well. And for those people that will eventually become involved in the board of directors of the homeowners association, it's critical that they have a proper perspective on these communities and what went into it to bring it to where it is at the point they get involved. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit today to describe that in a preliminary sort of way so that you would understand. We will be referring back to these things and in videos in the future when we talk about problems that may arise and things that have to be planned for and be managed. So we will do that. But thank you for coming by today. I appreciate you watching this video. If you would, if you could forward this video, link to this video to someone you know who is living in your community, maybe, or another community, people who may be involved in getting on a board of homeowner associations, but just anyone who may be interested in these kinds of issues. So thanks. If you would like this video, that would be great. If you'd subscribe to this channel, you'll be getting a lot more information in the future like this, more detailed than this in the future to help you manage not only your community, but your particular lot, your little piece of the community that you are responsible for and that you own. So thanks for coming by again, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.